Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Bible study lesson for tonight. Tonight, we're going to kick off a series that I'm doing talking about what we believe. Now, many of us have heard this stuff, we've listened to this stuff, but I really want to take some time to really talk about what we believe as Methodists. This whole entire study is based on a book by a gentleman named David Case. He's a layperson and was speaking about Wesleyan theology. And so, what we're going to do tonight is really look at what we believe as Methodists, I want you to understand this is written by a layperson. It's not like so it's going to talk about theology. It's going to talk about what we believe, but it's not going to be at a level that's, I think, it'll be above anyone's head. And so we're excited to start this series. And the first of this series is what we believe about God. And so we're going to take some time to really look at what we actually believe about God and clear up some misconceptions we have about God. All right, let's get started. Click. Okay. Um, so let's first look at the Bible. As always, when you're thinking about God or you're thinking about theology, you want to look at the Bible. Okay, this is our resource. This is what lets us know what we actually believe. So let's look at what the Bible says about God. All right, let's look at Genesis 1:1, which says, "In the beginning, God created the heaven and earth." That's the first verse we're looking at. We'll skip over Deuteronomy 6:4 and 5, which says, "Listen, O Israel, the Lord your God listen, O Israel, the Lord is your God, the Lord alone. And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength." Then we're going to skip over to Isaiah. "Whom can you compare to God? What image can you find to resemble him? Can he be compared to an idol who was formed and molded and overlaid with gold and decorative with silver chains? Or if people are too poor for that, they might at least choose wood that would decay and a skilled craftsman to carve the image that would fall down." So I know these three scriptures seem a little odd, but walk with me here and we're going to see how they all work together. All right, let's look at Genesis 1:1, right? So Genesis 1:1 says, as we just looked at, speaks to God. Genesis 1:1, I'll read it again for you. "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." Okay. So this verse speaks a lot about God. One, it speaks of God's existence. Okay. So it says that God existed even before time began. Okay. One of the things you have to understand about God, our God is that big that he's outside of time. Right. And it speaks to the fact that God is the creator of all things. Okay, so the God we're talking about here is a omnipotent God. We're talking about a God that is outside of our realm of knowledge, but also we're talking about a God that is the creator of all things. Okay, anything that we see, God had a hand in creating it. Okay, all right, let's look at the Deuteronomy text. All right, what do we learn from this text? What we should learn is how to respond to God, right? Um, and he wanted to, and so this verse given Deuteronomy by Moses was to let Israel know how they should respond to God and what they should know about their God. This verse is important because you got to understand during the time of Moses, it was a time of polytheism. Polytheism, we'll read the definition. Definition says polytheism, a belief in or worship of more than one God. Monotheism, of course, the opposite of polytheism, the doctrine or belief that there is only one God. Historically related to forms of monotheism or Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all believe in one God. Um, and so, what we have to understand is God is we worship one God. Now, now we don't. I won't say this. Polytheism isn't as blatant as it was during Moses' day. People legit would worship. They would have these tribal gods. You get what I'm saying? So they would have gods of this tribe and God of that tribe. And if your tribe beat another tribe, then your God must be stronger. Okay. So that's how they view gods, is if gods were limited to certain areas and certain deities. And so they would do different things to appease their God so their God would show them favor. All right, let's look at Isaiah 40, 18 through 20. What that does is the verse in Isaiah, it contrasts the polytheistic systems. And what Isaiah is speaking to mostly is about idols. You hear the word idol a lot of time in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament, talking about them worshiping idols. What they would do is each town or region or whatever would carve statues of their gods. We understand this. Think about the Greeks and the Romans. They would have these huge temples built for their god, and they, their they would have a picture, they would have a stone cut out of the god there, and many times they believe that the gods operated especially in certain areas, right? And so idols were things that people would worship in those days, but we still have idolism going on now. Let's look at it. Let's read the definition for idols. The definition of idols says man-made images or representations worshipped as deities. Any natural or manufactured object worshipped as a deity. Anything receiving worship other than the one true God. So let's break that down for a second. It says man-made images or representations is worshipped as deities. So when you create something, think about the children of Israel when they created the golden calf. Creating that thing and they begin to bow down and worship it, they made that their god. That's an idol. Okay. And then any natural or manufactured object that's worshipped as a deity, people who worship the sun, the rain, the moon, the storm god, things of that nature. Or if something you manufactured, you built some kind of giant rocket and you worship that, that would be an idol. And then the last part is the part that I think that really touches to us in a modern day sense, is anything receiving worship other than the one true God. Now, this opens the doors for a lot of things. There's a lot of times, and we don't want to admit to it, we make idols of things that, of things. Some people, they don't want to admit it, their children are an idol. And I know you're saying, oh, you can't make your children an idol. Yeah, you can. We can devote all your time. And when you worship them, act like they can do no wrong and, bow down and kiss their feet, for lack of a better word, you make them an idol. And I know some of us say, oh, we don't, you can make sports an idol. You can make your job an idol, because and people say, well, oh, I don't worship my job. I don't worship sports. But there's legit people who, if you begin to put things more importantly than your worship of God, you could make that your idol. So you have to be careful about that. I know a lot of people say, oh, they might think I'm being a little legalistic here, but if you think about it, idols could be anything, right? Church can even be an idol. I know I'm not talking about church. I'm talking about the actual physical building can be an idol, because many people feel we can't worship God unless we're in this building, and that can be an idol. So we have to be careful about things that we put above the creator God. All right. I like this quote by J.B. Phillips. David Case quotes him by saying, your God is too small. And what JB is trying to get at is, most of us, our view of God is way, way too small, right? We try to associate our shortcomings on this all-powerful God. And what I mean by that is, we want God to be as petty as we are, right? We want God to be as, what's the word I want to use? As, we all talk about God being petty. He does mean stuff to people. He does stuff to people to pay people back for all this other stuff. That's not how God operates. And sometimes we try to lower God down to our level instead of trying to grow up to his level. Okay. All right. So let's look at this. This is some statistics from, let me see. I think it's from the Gallup poll about God. And look, the first question they ask, question number A, is, do you believe in God? 87% of people said yes, right? And then the question number B says, for each of the items I'm going to read you, please tell me whether it's something you believe in, something you're not sure about, don't believe in about God. And so question B, you notice it drops down to 79%, because what they so people believe in God. A lot of people believe in God. But when you start trying to drill down, who you say God is, that's when you start having troubles. There's very few people who, I mean, you're gonna notice now, a lot of people don't believe in the God, the creator God that we're talking about. A lot of people believe, uh, God's this watchmaker. There's a lot of agnostic people who believe that God, there is a higher deity, but we can't know who he is. There's a lot of stuff that comes with that. So just because people say they believe in God, you still need to drill down and figure out who they're talking about. And we need to be clear about whom we're talking about. We're talking about the God of the Bible. We're talking about the creator God. We're talking about this all powerful God who doesn't, who's outside of our time, an omnipotent God who um, works through human history to accomplish his goal. We're talking about that kind of God. A lot of people, when you start talking to them about what they believe about God, their theology, you'll notice that it's not as it might not be what you believe it is. Okay. All right. Because there's a lot of isms out there. I know you're saying, Pastor, what are you talking about isms? Oh, let's look at some isms. First one's atheism. What is atheism? Atheism, by definition, is belief that there is no God. People who are atheists believe that there is no God. They live their life like there's no God. Okay. Then there's agnosticism. Um, Again, I mentioned this just a second ago. The view that any ultimate reality, such as a deity, is unknown and probably unknowable. So, a philosophical or religious position characterized by uncertainty of existence of a God. So, philosophers debate back and forth about God and how God functions. That's kind of what philosophers do. And some philosophers believed in God, but they believe that this God whom created everything, because they see some signs in their philosophical debates that there should be some creator who did all this, but they don't believe that that creator can be known, and that's kind of how they're not fully atheists, meaning they don't believe that they believe that there's some deity out there, there's something greater out there, but they're not sure who it is, nor do they believe that they can find out who that deity is. Okay. Next one is deism. Okay. A movement or system of thought advocating natural religion, emphasizing morality, and 18th centuries denying the interference of the creator with the laws of the universe. So deists um, are more about natural religion. So these people are the people who kind of see God in trees and water. You probably know some deists. They probably don't say that they're deists, but they probably say, "Oh, I believe in God," and blah blah blah. But I see him in the trees, and that's deism. Okay, um, pantheism that equates God with the forces of law of the universe. So God is, when you start hearing people talking about, oh, the universe did this, the universe did that, that's signs of pantheism. We're starting to see a rise of that now, especially in this age where people talk about the universe and things of that nature. They're speaking that there is a God, but they're thinking of it as, but it's not the God. It's not necessarily God we focus in on the Bible. Last one is theism. Theism is a worldview that an infinite, personal God created the universe and meticulously intervenes in it from time to time. Um, God is both transcendent over the universe and immanent in it. Those of us of the faith of the Methodist faith, we would believe in theism, that there is a God. He's personal and knowable, and he created the universe and meticulous and intervenes at time to time to accomplish his purpose. Okay, so we do believe that miracles happen, and we believe that he's both transcendent above the universe, over the universe, and immanent. So he's outside and inside. What that means is God is, he's huge and he handles everything that goes on in the universe. He supports the universe, but he's also concerned intimately about you and I. Okay, so let's look at our belief about God. God is beyond this world, and in this world, God is beyond this world in this world at the same time. I just mentioned this when we was talking about the definition. God is distinct in this world. Um, I mean, so meaning that God is who he is. He's distinct. You understand who he is. His thoughts are not our thoughts. In other words, God's thoughts are not what we can't think on God's level. And we have to understand that. And it says God also sustains this world. He supports it. He makes stuff happen so things happen. Here's a big word, big Latin word coming up. God created the world ex nihilo. What that means is he created the world out of nothing. Nothing else was necessary for God to create the world. God spoke it into existence, as we do believe in Genesis, where it says, God said, let there be light. We believe that God created the world out of nothing, meaning there's nothing before him. Okay, that's important. God is supernatural. That means that he's the God of miracles. Miracles are a spectral act of God that interrupts natural course of events. So, a lot of us believe in miracles, things that don't make natural sense but end up working out, right? All right. And we live in a universe that God can intervene as he chooses. Understand that God can intervene in things and God can choose not to intervene. It's totally his decision. We have to understand and respect God's sovereignty. So this is what kind of God that we serve. So here's some questions for discussion. First question is, why is it necessary to turn to the Bible for understanding about God? Think about that. Wrestle with that one. Why do you think it's important for us to turn to the Bible to study about God? Do you find it unsettling to discover that the Bible makes no effort to prove God's existence? This is an honest question. Really think about that. A lot of people have a problem that the Bible doesn't try to prove God's existence, right? Why do you think that most Americans profess a belief in God? Why do you think that? Deism emphasizes the transcendence of God. Pantheism emphasizes the immanence of God. Theism emphasizes both. Can you explain why? Transcendence versus immanence, it is not either or, but both and. And both and way of speaking about God is difficult. Why is that difficult? Theism believes in creation ex nihilo. What does that mean? What does the theist say about miracles? Can you identify some points in history where God intervened in ordinary course of events to accomplish his purpose? Is there anything on the horizon in human history that makes you think that God will intervene once again? These are some questions. Wrestle with them. Really talk them over with people. And coming back next week, we're going to be looking at more of what we believe. And so I hope and pray that you are having a wonderful evening. Please take this time to really go over this lesson. May it sink in. May it really hopefully helps you understand what kind of God that we serve. God bless you, keep you. May his face shine upon you and give you peace.